everyone, and welcome to the Denison Museum. Thank you so much for coming to the first Beck Series reading of the year, made possible by the Harriet Ewins Beck Endowment, which we are so grateful for, and to the English department and the creative writing program. We're very grateful to make this amazing event possible with Ilya Kaminsky and Katie Farris. And I'm grateful to all of you for filling this incredible space full of portraits. And I hope if this is your first time at the museum that you will come back. They have amazing galleries up on display. Just to keep on your radar, the next Beck Series reading is on October 14th with Melissa Falavino and Melissa Phoebos in the Barney Davis boardroom. So keep an eye out for that amazing reading by two essayists. Now, I could go on and gush about Ilya and Katie for days, because Ilya's collection was the first collection that I read in graduate school, and it inspired me in many ways to become the poet that I am. And the way Katie writes about the body has been transforming the way I teach the body and the way I myself write the body since I encountered her work. But rather than go on, I'm going to invite two marvelous creative writing seniors who have just read both of their collections to do the introductions. So we're going to start with Katie Everett, who's going to introduce Ilya, and then Sophia Miller is going to introduce Katie. Give them a round of applause. This is hard to do.
Hi. I want to thank Dr. Kolchinsky for the opportunity to introduce one of our guests today. Ilya Kaminsky was born in the former Soviet Union city of Odessa in 1977 and arrived in the US in 1993 when his family was granted asylum. He's the author of Deaf Republic and Dancing in Odessa and is the co-editor and co-translator of many other books. A finalist for the National Book Award, Kaminsky's work has won the Los Angeles Times Book Award, the Anisfield-Wolf Book Award, the National Jewish Book Award, the Whiting Award, the American Academy of Arts and Letters Metcalf Award, and Poetry Magazine's Levinson Prize. He was also shortlisted for the National Book Critics Circle Award, Neustadt International Literature Prize, and T.S. Eliot Prize. He is the recipient of a Guggenheim Fellowship, a Lannan Fellowship, an Academy of American Poets Fellowship, and an NEA Fellowship. He currently teaches in Princeton and lives in New Jersey. I had the privilege of reading Deaf Republic with Dr. Kolchinsky, and the collection is a profoundly intimate and innovative work that invites us into a world where silence is both a weapon and a refuge. Last semester, I was able to take another class with Dr. Kolchinsky, during which we engaged in a comprehensive study of the Holocaust and its ramifications around the world. In particular, we discussed the atrocities that occurred in the former Soviet Union and the lack of documentation of the millions of Jews murdered in the German-occupied Soviet territories, including the massacre at Babin Yar. The silence surrounding this history leads not only to ignorance, but the threat of such atrocities occurring again. While the story within Deaf Republic demonstrates the power of one's silence, the work itself simultaneously brings voice to the realities of violence and injustice. Through his poignant and evocative language, Kaminsky communicates themes of oppression and resistance that are very real and omnipresent as marginalized groups continue to be persecuted around the world. His collection provokes us to contemplate our place in these instances of conflict and the consequences of our silence. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming Ilya Kaminsky.
Thank you so much for this kind introduction, and thank you so much, Julia, for bringing us here. It's an honor to be here with so many terrific poets in the audience. And thank you, Julia, for your open poems, which are really wonderful. And thank you for introducing us to your students today, who are very wonderful. So, having said that, it's really always a pleasure to read with Katie Farris, who's a superior poet in every respect. So I'll try to read quickly and get out of your hair, okay? I speak with a pretty heavy accent, so I hope you are able to share the handout. If you don't have one, maybe sit next to somebody who does, and that way you'll make a friend, because they will save you from falling asleep for the next 30 minutes. Okay. Having said that, I'm just going to read some poems. The first one is called We Lived Happily During the War. We lived happily during the war. And when they bombed other people's houses, we protested, but not enough. We opposed them, but not enough. I was in my bed. Around my bed, America was fallen. Invisible house by invisible house by invisible house. I took a chair outside and watched the sun. In the 6th month of a disastrous rain, in a house of money, in a street of money, in a city of money, in a country of money, our great country of money. We, forgive us, lived happily during the war. So what I'm going to read now comes from a book called Deaf Republic, which is a story in verse about a pregnant woman and her husband who, in a time of civil unrest, see a soldier shoot and kill a young deaf boy. And in response to that murder, they see the whole community decide to stand up and protest the authorities by refusing to hear them. Can you follow me, okay? Okay. Deaf Republic, gunshot. Our country is a stage. When soldiers march into town, public assemblies are officially prohibited. But today, neighbors flock to the piano music from Sonia and Alfonso's puppet show in Central Square. Some of us have climbed up into trees, others hide behind benches and telegraph poles. When Petya, the deaf boy in the front row, sneezes, the sergeant puppet collapses, shrieking. He stands up again, snorts, shakes his fist at the laughing audience. An army jeep swerves into the square, disgorging itself, and sergeant disperse immediately. Disperse immediately. The puppet mimics in a wooden falsetto. Everyone freezes except Petya, who keeps giggling. Someone claps a hand over his mouth. The sergeant turns towards the boy, raising his finger. You! The puppet raises a finger. Sonia watches her puppet. The puppet watches the sergeant watches Sonia and Alfonso, but the rest of us watch Petya lean back, gather all the speed in his throat, and launch it at the sergeant. The sound we do not hear lifts the gulls of the water. As soldiers march, Alfonso covers the boy's face with a newspaper. 14 people, most of us strangers, watch Sonia kneel by Petya, shot in the middle of the street. She picks up his spectacles, shining like 2 coins, balances them on his nose, observes this moment, how it convulses. Snow falls and the dogs run into the streets like medics. 14 of us watch. Sonia kisses his forehead, her shot a hole torn in the sky. It shimmers the park benches, porch lights we see. In Sonia's open mouth, the nakedness of the whole nation. She stretches out beside the little snowman napping in the middle of the street. As picking up its ballet, the country runs. Alfonso in snow. You're alive. I whisper to myself, search for something and you listen. Something runs down the street, falls, fails to get up. I run, etc., with my legs and my hands behind my pregnant wife, etc. Down Washington Street, I run, etc. It only takes a few minutes, etc., to make a man. Darkness and insurgency begins. Our country woke up next morning and refused to hear soldiers. In the name of Petya, we refused. At 6 a.m., when soldiers compliment the girls in the alleyway, the girls slide by, pointing to their ears. At 8, the bakery door is shut and soldiers see one face, so he's the best customer. At 10, Mama Gala chalks, no one hears you. On the gates of the soldiers' barracks. By 11 a.m., arrests begin. Our hearing does not weaken, but something silent in us strengthens. After curfew, families of the arrested hung homemade puppets out of their windows. The streets empty, but for the squeaks of trains and the tap-tap against the buildings of wooden fists and feet. In the ears of the town, snow falls. Alfonso stands, answerable. My people, you were really something fucking fun. On the morning of the first arrest, our man, once frightened, bound to their beds, now stand up like human masks. Darkness passes through us like a police whistle. Here the night testify, each of us comes home. Shuts at the wall, at the stove, at the refrigerator, at himself, forgive me. I wasn't honest with you. Life, to you, I stand answerable. I run, etc. With my legs and my hands, etc. I run down Washington Street, etc. Whoever listens, thank you for the fodder on my tongue. Thank you for our arguments at end. Thank you for deafness, Lord, such fire from a match you never lit. That map of bone and opened valves. I watched the surgeon tame the deaf boy take iron and fire in his mouth. His face on the asphalt, that map of bone and opened valves. It is the air. Something in the air wants us too much. The earth is still. The time regards the cucumbered sandwiches. This first day, soldiers examine the ears of bartenders, accountants, soldiers. The wicked then silence us to soldiers. They take Gora's wife from her bed like a door of a bus. Observe this moment, how it convulses. The body of the boy lies on the asphalt like a paperclip. The body of the boy lies on the asphalt like the body of a boy. I touch the walls, feel the pulse of the house. An history of wordless and do not know why I am alive. We tiptoe the city, Sonia, and die between cedars and guardians and wrought iron gates. Be courageous, we say, but no one is courageous. As a sound we do not hear lift the birds of the water. Before the war, we made a child. I kissed a woman whose freckles arose the neighbors. She had a mole on her shoulder, which she displayed like a medal for bravery. Her trembling lips, man, come to bed. Her hair of water falling in the middle of the conversation. Man, come to bed. I walked in my barber shop of those. Yes, I lifted her off to bed on the chair of my hairy arms. But parted lips, man, bite my parted lips lying under the cool sheets, Sonia. The things we did. Soldiers say about us. Soldiers say about us. They fire. The crowd of women flees inside the nostrils of searchlights. My God, have a photograph of this. In the piazza's bright air, soldiers drag Peter's body and his head down the stairs. I feel through my wife's shirt the shape of our child. Soldiers drag Peter up the stairs and homeless dogs. Then, as philosophers understand everything and bark I. Now on a bridge with no camouflage of speech, a body wrapping the body of my pregnant wife tonight. We don't die and don't die. The earth is still a helicopter. I balls my wife on earth. A man cannot flip a finger at the sky because each man is already a finger flipped at the sky. Lullaby, lullaby. Little daughter, rain, water, snow, and branches protect you. Whitewashed walls and neighbor's hands. Oh, child of my April's little earth of 6 pounds, my white hair keeps you sleep lit. While the child sleeps, Sonia undresses. She scrubs me until I spit soapy water. Big, she smiles. A man should smell better than his country. Such is the silence of a woman who speaks against silence, knowing that silence is what moves us to speak. She throws my shoes and glasses in the air. I'm of deaf people and I have no country but a bathtub and an infant and a marriage bed. Soaping together that is sacred to us. Washing each other's shoulders. You can fuck anyone. But with whom can you sit in water? 4 a.m. bombardment. 4 a.m. bombardment. My body runs in a loom of street, my clothes in a pillowcase. I look for a man who looks exactly like me, to give him my Sonia, my name, my shirt. It has begun. Neighbors climb the trolleys at the fish market, breaking all their moments in half. Trolleys parts like intestines in the sun. Pavel shots, I am so fucking beautiful, I cannot stand it. 2 boys still holding tomato sandwiches, hop in a trolley slide. Soldiers same at their faces. Yes, I can't find my wife. Where is my pregnant wife? A body, an adult male, awaits to explode like a hand grenade. It has begun. I see the blue canary of my country. Big breadcrumbs from each citizen's size. Big breadcrumbs from my neighbor's hair. The snow leaves the earth and falls straight up as it should. To have a country so important, to run in the walls, in the streetlights, in the loved ones, as one should. The blue canary of my country runs in the walls, in the streetlights, in the loved ones. The blue canary of my country watches their legs as they run and fall. A cigarette. Watch. Weißenke citizens do not know. They are evidence of happiness. In a time of war, each is a ripped out document of love for watch God. They have something to tell that not even they can hear. Clamber roof in the central square of this bombed out city, you will see one neighbor gives a cigarette, another gives a dog a pint of sunlit beer. You will find me, God, like a dumb pigeon's beak I am pecking every which way at astonishment. Firing squad. On balconies, sunlight. On poplar, sunlight on our lips. Today, no one is shooting. A girl cuts her hair with imaginary scissors. The scissors in sunlight, her hair in sunlight. Another girl nicks a pair of shoes from a sleeping soldier's covered with light. A soldier's wake and gape at us, gaping at them. What do they see? Tonight, they shot 50 women at Lerner Street. I sit down to write and tell you what I know. A child learns the world by putting it in her mouth. A girl becomes a woman, and a woman her body. They blame you for all things, and they seek in the body what does not live in the body. The townspeople watch them take Alfonso. Now, each of us is a witness stand. Vasenka watches us. Watch for soldiers throw Alfonso Brabinski on a sidewalk. We let them take him. All of us. Cowards. What we don't say, we carry in our suitcases, our coat pockets, our nostrils. Across the street, they wash him with fire hoses. First he screams and he stops so much sunlight. A t-shirt falls off a closest line and an old man stops, picks it up, presses it to his face. Neighbors line up to watch him thrown on a sidewalk like a body will walk. Ta-da! In so much sunlight, each of us is a witness stand. They take Alfonso, and no one stands up. Our silence stands up for us. Okay, and the last poem I read before I get out of your hair is going to come a little bit closer home. It's called In a Time of Peace. In a Time of Peace. Inhabitant of Earth for 40-something years, I once found myself in a peaceful country. I watched the neighbors open their phones to watch a cop demanding a man's driver license. And when a man reaches for his wallet, the cop shoots into the car window. Shoots. It is a peaceful country. We pack up our phones and go to the dentist, to pick up the children from school, to buy shampoo and basil. Ours is a country in which a boy, shot by police, lies on the pavement for hours. We see in his open mouth the nakedness of the whole nation. We watch others, watch the body of a boy lies on the pavement exactly like the body of a boy. It is a peaceful country, and it clips our citizens' bodies effortlessly, the way the president's wife trims her toenails. All of us still have to do the hard work of dentist appointments, of remembering to make a summer salad. Basil, tomatoes, it is the joy. Tomatoes, add a little salt. This is a time of peace. I do not hear gunshots, but watch birds splash over the backyards of the suburbs. How bright is the sky as the avenue spins on the taxis. How bright is the sky? Forgive me. How bright. Thank you.
Hello. I just want to say that was so incredible and just an amazing experience to be able to hear you read your work out loud, and it was awesome. Without further ado, Katie Farris. Katie Farris is a poet, writer of hybrid forms, and translator. Her most recent works are Standing in the Forest of Being Alive and the chapbook A Net to Catch My Body in Its Weaving. Her earlier collection is Boys Girls, a hybrid form book. Her awards include the Pushcart Prize, Orison Prize, and Anne Halley Prize from Massachusetts Review. She is also the award-winning translator of several books of poetry. In addition, Farris writes prose about cancer, the body, and its relationship to writing. She holds degrees from UC Berkeley and Brown University, and currently lives and teaches in New Jersey. I was introduced to Katie's work in Dr. Kolchinsky's new Poetics of the Body class this term, which I took mainly because I missed having poetry in my life. I took Dr. David Baker's poetry workshop when I was a sophomore, but have since mostly focused on prose. I'm now a senior, concentrating as of now on creative nonfiction, and though I've always considered myself a writer, I've never fully felt like a poet. Last week, after a thrilling class discussion on Katie's poems, I sat down to write about a moment of déjà vu that I experienced later that day, thinking it might be the beginnings of some essay, but instead what came out was verse. I hadn't written a poem in what feels like forever, but with Katie's clever line work, her sharp humor, and transformative images all marinating in the back of my mind, how could I not turn to poetry? Enjoy Katie's beautiful work, and I hope that she can inspire the poet in you too. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that beautiful introduction. And yeah, it's funny, I've listened to Ilya give a few poetry readings over the past 20 odd years. And each time, especially when he goes first, I'm like, I'm gonna sit back and try to relax this time. And instead, I sit on the edge of my seat and barely breathe the whole time. Totally riveted, and I don't know how it's possible to keep doing that, especially because, I mean, I love you very much, but I am somewhat, I would think I would be less susceptible to his charms after but no. Nope, so I'm wrecked emotionally. Again. So I'm going to be reading from my collection, Standing in the Forest of Being Alive, and the rough narrative of the whole piece starts in August of 2020 when I was diagnosed with breast cancer a few days before I turned 37. And it kind of follows from the time of my diagnosis through sort of chemo and mastectomy and radiation, and it sort of ends on a somewhat ambiguous note, but that's roughly the whole narrative. Not really a spoiler. Why write love poetry in a burning world? To train myself to find in the midst of hell what isn't hell. The body bald, cancerous, but still beautiful enough to imagine living, the body washing the body, replacing a loose front porch step, the body chewing what it takes to keep a body going. This scene has a tune, a language I can read, a door I cannot close. I stand within its wedge, a shield. Why write love poetry in a burning world? To train myself in the midst of a burning world, to write poems of love to a burning world. So one of the sort of patron saint of this book, or the ghost that haunts it, or whatever metaphor you might like to use, is Emily Dickinson. And the title of this poem is Tell It Slant, which was Emily Dickinson's advice for other poets or for aspiring poets to tell the truth, but to tell it slant. Tell it slant. Oh, and the word spiculated means spiky. If you're a doctor, if you go on and do that much school, they let you just throw in extra syllables if you want to. So spiculated, sure, it's spiky, that's fine. And I think that's everything you need to know. Oh yeah, I don't want you to cast your mind back, but remember, this is August 2020. So medical practitioners were having a tough time at that point. Tell it slant. You float in the MRI gloam, several spiculated masses. I name you cactus, carcinoma be damned. You make a desert of all of me. Have I said it slant enough? Here's a shot between the eyes. 6 days before my 37th birthday, a stranger called and said, "You have cancer, unfortunately," and then hung up the phone. So I had the true honor to do an op-ed for the New York Times right before the book came out. So it was like March 2023. And very exciting. They're very thorough with their fact checking, which I was not necessarily anticipating, especially for an op-ed, So like, I'm pretty sure they contacted like my kindergarten teacher. Like, it was deep. But they were like, the one person apparently they couldn't get a hold of was the doctor who actually called and gave me the news. And they were like, well, we can't confirm exactly what they said, but it seems fairly abrupt. Is that actually what happened? And I said, well, no, there was one. I said, can you give me any more information? And they were like, no, someone will call you in 2 weeks, within 2 weeks. And then they hung up the phone. So it was actually, I don't know, maybe a little worse. I think I gave them more the benefit of the doubt. But like I said, August 2020 was not a good time to be in the medical field. Turns out it wasn't a great time to have cancer either, but it's fine. Okay, this is called In the Event of My Death. Trying to make sure there's nothing here we need. No. In the event of my death. Oh, actually, yeah. Okay, picture. So this is actually my braid from the before times, and my arm holding it. So if you will, this kind of acts as an illustration of the beginning of this poem. What used to be a rope descending my vertebrae to the basement of my spine grows thin. In solidarity with my first chemotherapy, our cat leaves her whiskers on the hardwood floor. I gather them, each pure white parenthesis, and plant them in the throat of the earth. In quarantine, I learned to trim your barbarian hair. Now it stands always on end, a salute to my superior Barbary skills. In the event of my death, promise you will find my heavy braid and bury it. I will need a rope to let me down into the earth. I've hidden others strategically around the globe, a net to catch my body in its weaving. So getting back to Emily Dickinson here, this actually happened. So I had been hauling around this giant book of Emily Dickinson's collected poems. I don't know if she's the best poet to read this way. We were having a discussion last night about whether or not that's the best way to read it, but that's how I was doing it, damn it. And I'd been doing it since February 2020. So from before, before the pandemic really was in America, so to speak. So I finished it right at the very end of July as I was just about to get the diagnosis here. So I might have squished the timeline around a little bit, but close to it. The title is lengthy, and I will definitely talk about it more if anybody wants to hear more about it. It's very nerdy, so here we go. Finishing Emily Dickinson, first deacon in William Blake's Church of the Marriage of Heaven and Hell in the oncologist's waiting room. Oh, Emily, goodbye. We met in February and parted in July. I meet your sweet velocity in everything that flies, in mote and star, in sphere, in bird and phosphorus of God. Oblique, you preached obliquity, your body steeple for the church of mystery, your bell rings on beyond. Nerds in the audience might recognize Emily Dickinson's ballad meter, which I thought was only alternating trimeter and tetrameter, but it turns out it could also be alternating tetrameter and pentameter, which I learned from David Baker last night. It's great. I'm getting my education re-educated. I believe that this, Professor Kolchinsky was letting me know that one of the students mentioned that they're from Georgia, and I think this is the poem that she was talking about. So I'm reading it for the student who has spent some recent time in Georgia. Outside Atlanta Cancer Care, I returned to this point of wonder. What kind of animal began to stand on such small feet? And only two? What vertical absurdity, what upright madness. Perhaps we were imitating the trees, lifting our arms, wishing for roots, and then just forgot to set ourselves back down on our four more rational feet. Our longing grew our fingers longer, twigs into branches. For if you long hard enough, do you not find fruit in your palms? I return to this point of wonder. Eros haiku, so there are two haiku in this book, was one of them. Eros haiku, today my apple core sat on the countertop waiting for your mouth. The other poem that I'm going to read for Professor Kolchinsky's body. Poetics of the Body. I keep wanting to say writing the body because that's the class I've taught, but that is not correct. Okay, Rachel's chair. Once, many years ago, we made love at a friend's house. We were overnight guests, not perverts on the whole, but what I'm trying to say is she owned a chair so perfect for lovemaking, we joked about asking to take it home. If I had only known then how rarely we would find such objects, I would have. The fun part is we have many friends named Rachel, and they have for a long time been trying to determine who among them has that chair. No one has figured it out so far. So I have a lot of brothers. I have actually more brothers. I don't know exactly how many brothers I have. That's a fun fact. I've got some X steps in there that I'm not really too clear about. But the three brothers I have from my same parents are all in the trades. So one is a contractor, and another one's a handyman, and another one is a welder in an airplane parts factory, working the graveyard shift. I do not want to support any, what's the word I'm looking for? Not prejudices. Preconceptions. Sure, preconceptions about people in the trades, but they're not generally huge fans of poetry. But they do like this one, though. This is called Quid Pro Quo, a Dedication. You said we could replace our lumpy 20-year-old mattress if I wrote you a poem. So here's your goddamn poem. It's really fun to do I tried doing that in a really big room once it did not work as well. You really need like somebody pretty close to you to see that happening. Okay. So this one has kind of a long gloss. It's a short poem, but a long gloss. So there is a poet named Tomasz Chalamun, and he wrote, and I am sort of using that as a premise for my poem. He wrote that the painter Giotto used his sketches of sheep in order to create his paintings of angels. I have looked at Giotto's paintings several times since I have heard, both in person and online. I cannot see anything sheepy about his angels. I find myself somewhat skeptical. Chalamun is a wonderful poet and also quite a chaotic one, so I could also picture him making something. But anyway, he told me, I'm telling you, this is my job. I am fulfilling my obligation. This is not my idea. Okay, part 2, Jonah, you may or may not be familiar with, but he is an Old Testament prophet from the Bible and from the Torah, thank you. I want to say Pentateuch because I grew up in a certain world. Okay, anyway, Jonah did not like the gig of being a prophet, and he decided he wanted to run away, basically, from God, and he got on a boat, and he was going to join the circus or whatever he was going to do, and then there was a huge storm that came up, and he fell off the boat, and he got swallowed by a whale, like you do, and while he was in there, he rethought his decision. And once he decided he was going to be God's prophet once again, the whale vomited him back up again. Happy ending. And finally, if you're ever walking along a shore and you find something kind of a grayish-green, a grayish-yellowish lump, it doesn't look like much, but it smells like the best thing you've ever smelled in your life. Give me a call. We'll split the proceeds. What you have found is ambergris. It is one of the rarest and most expensive perfume ingredients. There are ingredients? It's good. I'm getting a little Gollum-y. I'm on day 3 of a headache and I'm a little tired, so why not ingredients? And it also happens to be whale vomit. That's a true fact. That's not a poetry fact. That's a real true fact. A week before surgery, I practice my body. Like Giotto's angels, sketched from his studies of sheep, I open the jaws of my back to the sky, eating my body deeper into this blue. Like Jonah, vomited from the whale, fragrant as ambergris, or plain as any woman who, a week before mastectomy, practices being opened. Okay, so this is to the pathologist reading my breast, palimpsest. You might have come across this word palimpsest before, but you might not have. So back in the day when, paper wasn't made out of trees, but was made out of like the skins of animals, right? When it was vellum, it was very expensive. So what used to happen is that once you wrote in ink, people would scrape down those parchments and write on them again. And you could read what was written, the fresh stuff, obviously, but you could also see kind of a ghost behind of what had been written before. And that's known as a palimpsest. And I think that's everything you need to know. To the pathologist, oh yeah, so this is actually from my path report. So once you, if you have cancer and you get the tumor removed, you get a path report basically that tells you how likely it is that the cancer might have spread, like what the margins are, whether you might need more surgery and so on. So this actually uses quotations from the path report written by Dr. Kimberly Pointe-Jour, MD. To the pathologist reading my breast, palimpsest. Specimen B, received fresh and subsequently placed in formalin, consists of a 392-gram simple-oriented mastectomy. Dear doctor, you've done my work for me in your first line with your tidy, slanting rhyme of specimen and formalin. To rhyme mastectomy, I thought my dear friend's pregnancy. She and I, our birthdays, 2 slender months apart. both of us harboring rapidly dividing cells so near our hearts. How's that for art? Present on the interior surface is a tan, grossly unremarkable skin ellipse with an eccentric, soft, everted nipple. Beneath my grossly unremarkable skin ellipse, an inscription there of every kiss, a couple playful too hard twists and late night drunken dare you strips, but mostly my own homely grip as I skidded into sleep. This is called After the Mastectomy, and this first scene actually happened. At the oncologist's office, a man stares. I stare back until he says, "People must stare at you." Why bother closing a door when everyone demands it open? I go to the world with my tongue out and my shirt unbuttoned, my keys in the lock, my 6-inch scar instead of a nipple. How can a watchtower hide? I am well positioned to seek out fires in invading hordes. My bald head, the beacon, the first alarm. I didn't bring my phone, and I don't know how much time has passed, so I'm giving you the 2-poem warning. It's traditional among my people to give the 2-poem warning. So this is Zoladex is a shot that basically for women who are young enough and who have hormone-positive cancer, our cancer eats, I think about it now like Pac-Man, our cancer eats hormones for breakfast and gets bigger. So Zoladex shuts down your ovaries and with other medications basically puts you in medical menopause. And it's a huge needle, really thick, and they give it to you right in the guts. It is a delight, and it's, thank God I have freckles because you can't see scars when you're covered in freckles. They just blend right into everything else. Woman with amputated breast returns for her injection. Oh, this is my angry poem, by the way, as you'll find. Now I lack the muscle to pull me into the third dimension, but in these two, I can give you the world. 3 drains, 5 scans, $20,000. Come, doctor, how do you like me now? I never wanted to be anything but biddable. You see the outline of my shape? Fill it in with your pencils, 7 points tickling me with color. I can. Watch me can, watch me do, watch me has, watch me watch. This cancer patient has ambition. I scratch, and here we are, dancing the chart. When you give me that Zoladex shot, it's from one long needle and right in the gut. And last, you know what, I'm gonna do something I said I wouldn't do. I'm going to do a slightly different final poem. This is called To the God of Radiation. So at the very end, what I thought was the very end of radiation, my radiation oncologist, so like where I was doing radiation, they apparently had a very casual approach, I found out much later, but like you just walk into this room, the door can't close behind you because it weighs 1 million pounds, it's made out of lead. It's not literally 1 million, I don't know how, it's heavy. And I just whip my shirt off and lay right down on the bed where they give you the radiation and they line you all up and whatever. So I have done this for 25 times, so a little over 3-4 weeks now. And I walk into the room, I rip my shirt off, I turn around, and there's my radiation oncologist instead of the techs who usually do the work there. I was like, oh, hi, I'll just... Sorry about that. And she was like, oh, hey. Yeah, she didn't even notice that part. Doctors are like that. Anyway, she was like, so we got to talk about this last scan because there's this kind of a shadow thing, and I don't know if it's cancer or if it's just a bit of mustard or whatever. But we need to talk about it because you've got kind of 2 options. Basically, we could... go ahead and zap it with what they call a booster, which is more radiation. And they do some, nobody needs this much detail, Katie. But basically they do it in places that you're more likely to get cancer or where they think you still have cancer. So she was like, here's the bad news. Because of where it is, it's gonna go through like all the major nerves and muscles in your arm. And because I had had some nerve damage from my mastectomy, she was like, this is going to be a tough one, I'll be honest. Like, you may not get your range of motion back, because at that point I couldn't lift my hand higher than this, but yay, look at that. So I did get that back, but she's like, it's probably going to hurt, it's going to be stiff. It could be anywhere from like it's achy sometimes to it feels like it's on fire every moment of every day, and I cannot tell you where in that range it's going to fall. And it could happen within a few days of radiation being over. It could happen 20 years from now. Again, we don't really understand a lot of this stuff, but because of where it is, your chances are a lot higher. So, or, bear with me, we could not do that at all, and you could just not have that extra booster of radiation, and hopefully it's not cancer, but if it is cancer, there's nothing we can do about it because you can't get any more radiation, and chemotherapy wasn't effective at anything other than giving me heart failure, and we can't possibly operate on it because of where it is. What do you want to do? It's your choice. I can laugh, but also I really appreciate the fact that she had the humility to ask, because a lot of times those decisions are taken out of your hands as a patient. And I kind of was like, if it was your mom, if it was your daughter, if it was you, what would you do? And she was like, I have been up all night thinking about it, and I don't know what to tell you because this is as close to 50-50 as anything I've seen. She said, I had nodes that were positive. I had a lot of cancer, way more than they thought I did. So she was like, well, there's that on one side, but then on the other side, like, most of them got taken out, but one of them didn't, and blah, blah, blah. So this is the poem about me trying to make that decision when I thought that I was done or nearly done with treatment. It was not the case. To the God of Radiation. Given the unexpected choice between uncertain death and certain damage, I find in the mirror a woman, breastless, burned, who, in an advisory capacity, asks, how much do you want to live? Enough? O God of radiation, let your light like a ship pass through me, your radiance exposing what's inside me like film a god takes. But must you clatter the eaves of my scapula, scurry the grasshopper nest of my heart, scythe my nerves, and cobweb my muscles to the rungs of my ribs? How much more can one body take? Enough. Light every deadly cell like a wick, burning in the paper lantern of my chest. My chest, a thing so ephemeral, yet held so firmly in your fist. Thank you.